Caught wife of 7 years, trying to openly cheat on me with someone I considered a friend from her Iwatch. I'm writing this from my phone, so bear with me if it's formatted wrong. So last night, my wife of 7 years decided to have a chill-out night. After dinner, she went to the den and was watching her programs while I flitted between watching the Spurs game, football/soccer, and doing some odds and ends that I had planned. Next thing I know, she's got the wine out and has had 2 bottles of the stuff. At around midnight, I went to check on her and saw she was out cold on the couch. I went to scoop her up when her watch thing buzzed and a message popped up on the screen. It said something along the lines of, "Haha, I can't do that, my name would knock 7 shades of shit out of me, tongue sticking out, tongue sticking out." I wondered what the fuck that was all about, so I pressed on it and it was a conversation between my wife and a friend of mine. Now I wouldn't say this guy is a close friend, but he's someone I played 5-a-sides with for years, drank with and have known since we were teenagers. We used to call him Jacket Holder, because when we got into scraps as teens, he'd always be the guy holding the jackets while everyone else went for it. Right, so as I said, I pushed on the conversation while this thing is still attached to her wrist, and scroll up to the top, and as far as I can tell it's him that contacts her first, unless she's deleted. There's lots of flirting and wink-winking going on, but nothing that you could outright say was cheating. Then I get to last night and when she's drunk she starts openly begging him for sex. I couldn't believe my fucking eyes. I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact words, but she was saying shit like how much she had always wanted him, how no one would ever find out if he did want to do something, and the last one that fucking killed me, that she was great at keeping secrets. I tried to scroll on her watch, but couldn't find any other messages, and I don't know her phone passcode. I put her in her bed and just sat in the kitchen in shock until I fell asleep, then got up for work at about 5:30. When I went to get in my work van, I just slumped down on the wheel and realized I couldn't face it, so I went back in the house, grabbed a half-drunk bottle of vodka, filled it to the top with Coke and went on a walk down the railway line. We live beside a lot of woodlands and a disused railway line that goes for miles, and I've walked about half the length of it. I'm sitting under a railway bridge like a fucking troll right now, just seething at the whole thing. You'd probably think there's a fire going from a mile away, due to the steam coming out of my ears. So what do? I don't want to speak to her. I can't even bear to look at her after reading that shit. It was like a dagger through my heart. I just feel like every morsel of love I had for her has evaporated into thin air after reading her begging like that. Fucking yuck. I honestly want to ghost her, man. If I could, I would never speak to her again. The whole "I'm great at keeping secrets" was the thing that got me though. Like, who even are you? It reeks, but it's a case of how far down the rabbit hole do I want to go. I don't care if I'm being honest, I'm just done. I've never felt so betrayed and disgusted in all my life. The thing is, I've invested so much in her, not just as a partner, but as a person. I loved her so much and thought her personality, and by extension, my personality, reflected that of good people. To realize she's a backstabbing snake makes me feel like a snake. I feel like a worse person than I was yesterday. The only way I can describe it is for someone you looked up to, took advice and life lessons from, to suddenly find out they were a pedo or a rapist or just a downright creep. Your entire perception of yourself and who you are would be shattered because you've taken on board what they've said and invested time into a creep. God, I'm rambling nonsense, I apologize. I'm lucky in that our house is owned by my parents, who 6 years ago moved to a retirement village and we moved in. The house will be bequeathed to me when they die, but I don't and hopefully won't own it for a long time. They couldn't be bothered with the upkeep and all the problems etc. and wanted to see out their final days in peace, so when we do divorce, my soon-to-be ex won't be getting her hands on it. So what do I do then? I'm honestly thinking of just not saying a word and throwing her right out. Also, while walking here, it went through my mind to get my mate who's a locksmith to quietly change the locks today. I could feed her any old garbage about something from the doors being broken. She won't care what's going on anyway, as long as I'm about. Then after he's done, lock the front door and tell her to come and look at something out the back. When she comes out, run back in and lock the door behind me. That sounds childish as fuck, doesn't it? Seriously though, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm staring at a bottle right now, and my life feels like it has been ripped apart at the seams. As for that prick so-called friend of mine, there's no doubt he was up to something here. There's also no doubt I wouldn't have caught wind of this at all, so I'll be seeing him very soon. Never mind holding jackets, he'll be holding his face. TLDR, caught wife trying to openly cheat on me with someone I considered a friend from her watch. Update. Thank you to everyone who reached out to me after my first post, was appreciated. So yesterday, after I had written the post and was in a complete mess, 2 dog walkers came over to check on me as I was concerning them. I told them everything, they listened, and the first thing one of them said to me was, "Son, the worst thing you can do right now is drink, it'll cause carnage." I have to thank her for that, because I was on the highway to hell at that point. I threw the vodka away, got in touch with a friend, and he said I could come to his for a while to calm down. He was at work but told me where the spare key was. We live in a small town of around 15,000 people, and he wasn't too far away, so once I got there I sat on his couch just trying to calm down. Throughout the morning I was getting multiple texts and phone calls from my wife asking where I was and what the hell was up, as my work van was still sitting in the driveway and I was nowhere to be seen. I text her back telling her that there was a problem with the engine, so I got a lift into work, which she seemed to buy as she just texted back saying okay. When my friend got back from his work at about 5 o'clock, I told him everything that had happened and asked him his opinion. I also told him not to tell anyone about jacket holder, as that might then get back to my wife, which I didn't want at this point. I would deal with him later. By that I mean I'll expose what a little rat he is. Knocking fuck out of him doesn't help me at all as of now. As an aside to the people saying he had done nothing wrong, he messaged my wife first. He was being extremely flirty. What the fuck is he even playing at messaging my wife for in the first place? He only knows her in passing, from afar. Look, I've got no problem with 2 adults conversing with each other, but they hardly knew each other and it was flirty from the start, as far as I could tell. I think they've seen each other while out and about and it's gotten flirty then. So my friend convinced me to try and keep a low profile and see what I could dig up, but at the same time speak to a lawyer and get the ball rolling in terms of finding out my options, which I have done today. He took me home about 6 o'clock and I was honestly dead on my feet by that point. I think the adrenaline pumping the entire day then suddenly stopping, knocks it right out of you, so I was extremely tired when I got home. The second I walked through the door, I knew something was up as my wife was on me right away asking me all sorts of questions about work. I asked her why does she even care? She said that I'd left my big flask and lunch bag in the front passenger side seat of my van and something's been up today, she could feel it. I was about to lie, but I was just too tired. I couldn't be bothered putting any sort of charade up, so I just said yeah, there is something up. That when I was putting her drunk arse to bed last night, a message came up on her Iwatch, which I read, and all the other ones, and that she was a fucking disgusting cheat that I wanted nothing more to do with. Her demeanor went from an arms-crossed person in power to a scared little girl within about a second. Great at keeping secrets, eh? Begging that little rat for sex, eh? Yep, read it all. She started sobbing and I walked away and upstairs into the shower. When I got out, she was sitting on the top stair crying still, and the excuses started right away. How she was drunk, vulnerable, had never done anything like that before, how he had messaged her first and it didn't mean anything, she was never gonna go through with it. Pretty much everything that everyone on here was saying she would say, like she had the playbook out. The only thing she didn't do was try and blame me. She probably knew I would have thrown her right out the door if she had tried that shit. I told her that I wanted a divorce and her out of the house within a month. Also told her that she was moving to the spare room. I've been pretty much ignoring her ever since, just scowling at her and shaking my head when she starts waffling nonsense. I don't want to hear it. She slept in the spare room last night and I haven't spoken to or texted with her at all today. If I'm lucky, maybe she'll be gone when I get back from work, but my luck's not that good, I suppose. On getting her out though, I was telling my parents what was happening and my mother was adamant I wasn't throwing her out onto the streets. She and my mother are close and always have been. We'd have been together 11 years in December. My mother was saying she made a mistake and that we should sort it out like adults, that we've been through too much together and that she didn't actually do anything, it was just words. She completely took her side over mine, couldn't believe it. Could this fuck me here? Like, do I have no right to ask her to leave if my mother is against it? It's gonna be my house when my parents pass, and I did nothing wrong, so I'm not leaving. It's probably gonna turn into a War of the Roses, Part 2. I managed to get myself an appointment with a divorce lawyer for next week, so I'll be going to that to discuss my options. Until then, I'm just gonna ignore my soon-to-be ex-wife, I guess. I know she's probably not gonna admit anything else now. I'll never know if she was a really good liar or she was just talking shit to him to get him on side with her for an affair. Anyways, sorry about the delay in the update, just got the chance to write it now as I'm finishing work. Well, back to the funhouse, I guess. Update. Hi, I thought I'd give an update since a lot of people have been personal messaging me asking for one. It's now been 20 days since I found out my wife was trying to cheat on me with my friend, and the situation has become hellish. I gave her a month to get out and she's been sleeping in the spare room, but it's clear now she doesn't have any intention of going after she got in the ear of my mother. She doesn't have anywhere to go at any rate, but that's not my problem. I've seen my divorce lawyer multiple times, and am now in the process of drawing up a divorce petition and having my wife serve divorce papers. I've also opened my own bank account and taken 50% of the balance from our shared account. The atmosphere around the house has been weird, to say the least. The living room has turned into a no-man's land where no one frequents as we both spend the majority of our time in our rooms. I've also intentionally been working late a lot so I don't have to interact with her much. I had been completely ignoring her, but after reading about the 180, have started implementing that and been civil, if a little cold towards her. I'm so glad I did this as I was beginning to feel like a monster refusing to acknowledge her existence. It was not the right way to behave and I ended up feeling like the one who had wronged her, rather than the other way around. The only time I broke from the 180 was when I walked into the bathroom last week and she was sitting on the floor by the bath crying. I helped her up and instinctively hugged her, though it was more of a there type hug than one with much love attached to it. The sad thing is that I'm so suspicious of her now, that I wouldn't put it past her to be waiting on me coming in so she could put on a performance. The thing is that probably isn't even true, but this is the sort of shit that's going through my head in this environment. It's just toxic. She's been crowing about how she'll do anything and everything to save this marriage, anything to prove to me that it was just a silly mistake, so I brought up a lie detector test. I don't plan on ever getting one done, wouldn't even know where to start, I just wanted to gauge her reaction. She was all for it, well until a few hours later, when she came to me, tablet in hand, going on about how inaccurate they are, and that anxiety and nervousness can throw up false readings, and with her and her anxiety disorder and all. I just laughed, wasn't even a normal chuckle either. It started as a bit of a cackle and ended in a childish giggle. It appears she would do everything to save this marriage, well everything except take a lie detector test, that is, It doesn't even matter anyway, I meant what I said in my original post, every morsel of love I had for her dissipated into the atmosphere after I read her say those horrible things. I don't see her as my true love anymore, the person I could tell anything to and would trust with my life. I just see trash that needs to be taken out before it stinks the place up. Jacket holder has been the talk of the town since I exposed him to our friend group a few weeks back. It's safe to say he has no friends left among us and has been completely ostracized. I tried phoning him a few times, but he refused to answer, then blocked my number. Fuck that little rat, I hope it was worth it. Spoken to my mother multiple times about this and during a heated argument asked her why she was taking my wife's side. Like, was there something she wasn't telling me here? What was she expecting, us to live like roommates? Go on like nothing happened? It's ridiculous. She said she has always seen my wife as the daughter she never had but always wanted. My mother had a stillborn daughter before I was born and it has haunted her, so she latched onto my wife and has done since we got together. As I said previously, they have a close bond. The fact my wife doesn't have any family and only a few friends who have their own busy lives and families means if I threw her out she would be all alone, and my mom thinks that's unacceptable, especially during a pandemic. She tried to get me to come to a compromise, saying that in 3 or 4 months we should look at it again and see where we are mentally, and is pushing me to try couples counseling before I throw in the towel. I'm not doing that. The thought of being in the same house as my wife over Christmas makes me feel ill. She'll want to do it right as she does every year, and it'll be a complete shit show. My dad, God love him, has never been much of a talker. Never up nor down, just always there. He's a quiet, proud, but timid man, and my mother's word has always been the one that matters in our house. People on here have been telling me that I'm selfish and spoiled as it's not my house and I have no right to make demands, but it's now a case of my wife or me for my parents. If worst comes to worst, I'm ready to walk out the door and never come back. Fuck this house. I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror with some semblance of self-respect, and someone has to keep their word in this debacle. If I do leave, my friend has said I can stay with him for a few weeks or so, till I get myself sorted. If I do walk out that door though, I'm done with my parents. I'll never speak to them again in my life. They'll probably see it as me giving up on them, me walking away without trying to at least have a go at fixing things first. I see it as them choosing someone who broke my heart over me. Like, what will be the logistics of this once I'm gone? Just her staying there herself, my mother and father looking after a backstabber while their flesh and blood goes off alone? A little more info on the house. My parents let us move in a year after our wedding. It was an apparent belated wedding gift, although that was just the chatter from them at the time. They were always planning on moving out and moving us in. I've spent tens of thousands on it over the years, but that's neither here nor there. I have fantasies of leaving this all behind, going somewhere new and starting again, but I don't have anywhere else to go. I've lived in this town all my life, it's all I know. Am I being too harsh here? I'm literally ready to slingshot my parents right out of my life, but I feel so torn. Why am I the one who has to lose everything and everyone? I've tried to be good, and I always thought you make your own luck, and that good things happen to good people. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am, maybe I deserve all I fucking get. Update. Well, since this morning, I no longer call that house home. I saw on the calendar that my wife had a hospital appointment with her ophthalmologist, so knowing she would be gone for a few hours, I took that as an opportunity to get my stuff together and move out, which I have. After getting my things moved and sorted, I put the house keys on the kitchen table, along with the divorce papers I received from the divorce lawyer last week, and was on my way. I blocked both my wife and mother's numbers, and any communication I have with my wife going forward will be done through my lawyer. In terms of my living situation, I'm staying with a friend for a week or two, but hopefully, I should be in my own rented place before Christmas. I haven't spoken to my parents in a few weeks. Last time we spoke was via text, and I tried to tell my mother, in explicit detail, the things my wife was saying during her texts to Jacket Holder. Why it hurt me so much, and why I didn't think it was her first time doing it with the whole "I'm great at keeping secrets" comment, and thus could never trust her again. My mother texted back saying she couldn't speak to me when I was like this, and she would let me cool off. She tried to phone me a few days ago, and I blanked her call, and as said a bit further up, since today have blocked her number. I feel so let down by my parents, and at this point, it almost feels worse than the original betrayal from my wife. The way I'm feeling right now, I don't think I'll ever speak to them again. I think in times of strife, you look to your family to be strong for you, to be a rock and give you, the wronged one, support. My parents have been weak, they've made me feel like the one in the wrong, like I'm overreacting, and it's me that's ripping this family apart. Well, it's not. I never asked them to move mountains for me, just move my cheating wife out of the house, and they made their choice. My father also had the chance to put his foot down for once in his life and stand up for me, but didn't. You make your choices and you live with them, I guess.